distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to welcome you to this panel discussions, Asia Capital Market Driving Force for Startups. Before the discussions begin, allow me to introduce the panelists here. The first one is Mr. Chan Amki, Executive Director at KOSDAQ Market, Korea Exchange. Mr. Chan joined Korea Exchange in 1990s. He has experience in strategic planning and market development, such as KOSPI Market, KOSDAQ Market, and Connect Markets. He is currently responsible for listing promotion and disclosure in KOSDAQ Market and Connect Market. He graduated from Korea universities and received an MBA from Vanderbilt Universities. Our second panelist is Mr. Yasuyuki Konuma, Executive Managing Director at Tokyo Stock Exchange. Mr. Konuma joined Tokyo Stock Exchange in 1984. He served in the listing equities and international business development department. He has experience including second to the Bank of Tokyo. He is in charge of developing and improving the listing rules for ETF and other asset-backed products. He graduated from Keio Universities and received an MBA from University of California, Berkeley. And our distinguished lady here, Kun Kesara Manchusree, President of the Stock Exchange of Thailand. Kun Kesara has been the president since 2014. Kun Kesara served as managing director of the Thailand Future Exchange, and she also appointed as a member of the board of directors at the World Federation Exchange since 2016. Kun Kesara graduated from Thammasat Universities and received MS in Finance from Golden Gate Universities. Okay, let me start our first question. I will have about 4 to 5 questions, and you can have 3 to 5 minutes for each question. Okay. Since this event is about a startup event, right? And everyone feels really exciting about startup. Can you share what would be the top challenges for doing startup business in your country? Let's start with Mr. Shah first.
Thank you. As you know, we have the two main markets, KOSPI market and KOSDAQ market, and we operate two sub-markets, Connect market and KSM. And the startup company is mainly listed in Connect market and KSM. KSM means KRX startup market. And today's topic is limited to the startup market, so I will explain about the Connect market and the KSM. It's another long history we have in the KSM. KSM is launched last November last year, and it has only 7 months. And this market is targeted for the just setup company which is succeed in the crowdfunding. And we have some lesson and from operating this market. I will point out the reality of startup market and the startup company and the overall market system. Actually, the overall market system is targeted for the relatively large company, but as you know, the startup market is very small, and they are very different circumstances compared to large companies. So some regulations is not appropriate for the startup market, so we need to make the special regulation for startups and some tax easing the regulation about the listing or disclosure or accounting, something like that. And so our experience say we should another system for startup market, which is differentiated from the regulation targeted for large company.
Okay, so the most challenge for Korea market will be the strict regulations in this case. So, Konuma-san, how about your case in Japan?
Okay. So first of all, I like to express my sincere thanks the opportunity to be here. Well, then I was very surprised and then even much embarrassed how the big of this event today for 4 days. I participated in the Tech in Asia event in Japan last year, but the size was very smaller than this one. So I was thinking that this area startup, the atmosphere is very much hot and then promoted. So in that sense, I'm very jealous at this moment. Yep. Anyway, in the startups in Japan, well, I would say that I like the KRX. Our market structure is almost same. The kind of main market plus emerging market, and then from the exchange side, try to invite a lot of the opportunity for the industry wide. However, the people related to the supporter to the companies is still limited. For example, the securities industry people, they pay a lot of attention. It's a fast-growing, scale-up opportunity of the company. Then venture capitals, always they are looking for the high-tech or biotech company. There is a big challenge, a big opportunity towards the futures. But the countrywide, the challenge is how to the bottoms up the all kinds of industry people, including the agriculture or traditional industry people. And then in that the phase, the not so much many capital market people is related or concerned about that. So that was a very important issue. So now the government or the market side people starting to work more on the banking industry. So regional banking industry have a lot of the gradually moving moderate expanded companies, and how to encourage those people. That is one of the top priority at this moment.
Okay. So in case of Japan, it will be we need more supporters to support startup market. Okay, Kun Kesara ครับ what would be the case for Thailand for the top challenge?
ค่ะ thank you ค่ะ and thank you for both of our speaker that came from Japan and Korea. For the case of Thailand, I believe that you all guys that are here all knows that startup in Thailand has been growing up, and we are seeing more and more startup business happen in Thailand. And it's not only the startup, it's about another type of the business we call the micro SME. So we know that a lot of micro SME in Thailand is over 2 million people that working in this area. But if you are seeing that what happened to these people, they have using their own funding or their relative funding. So I think one thing that they already explored that what happened to this startup business is very difficult to find the funding, because of major fundings in Thailand would be from the banking sector, which is once you are the startup, you wouldn't have anything to go for the banking. But another thing is from the capital market. And the capital market is we need a kind of, what we have is we have the Stock Exchange of Thailand. And we have another one called Market for Alternative Investment, MAI, which is a smaller size of listing. But these two markets, need a lot of history, needs a lot of performance. So it means that we cannot find the good funding source to this startup. That's why when for the stock environment, and we know that the stock exchange is very good at doing a kind of matching between the who got the fund and who would like to have the funding. That's why we are thinking about this for quite some time already. And last year we formulated our plan that if we could do something for the startup business in terms of the kind of accessibility to the funding source, it would give the startup to have a kind of more flexibility in terms of doing their own business. That's why we are going to introduce the live platform, which you can go to see in the exhibition hall. This platform would be actually is similar to those two countries. That this is not a listed company. This platform would kind of off market, and the transaction would be a kind of negotiating transaction. And this one, I believe that it would be a starting point that we can have another vehicle that provide the accessibility to the funding. Thank you.
Okay. For Thailand, the most challenge will be the access to the funding. So SET trying to create a new platform that works for everyone in the market. Okay. So Konuma-san, you mentioned about the support from the industry. How could the capital market play an important role to support the startup or SME in Japan?
Okay. Well, the capital market itself, the one of the contribution to those people is the try to inform them what is the companies and what is the business judgment, and then try to do some the opportunity of the human resource management. Well, a lot of the company there is a good ideas, but still lack of the human resource. And then, well, I think if the stock exchange or capital market support those smaller size companies as a kind of listing venue or maybe crowdfunding venue, and then try to make a transparency of the companies, there is more opportunity that company can collect the good personnel or reliableness of the company itself, and then have a chance to have the partnering of the business itself. So that's one of the factor I would say in summary is kind of a branding or trust of the company. That's maybe the infrastructure of the capital market side can contribute.
Okay, so capital market can provide us transparencies and trusted system. Okay, Mr. Chair, how about in Korea?
As you know, many startup companies in Korea say they feel big trouble from getting investment of institutional investors. And based on this point, the policies of Korea government and the KOSDAQ focus on supporting the fund financing of startup companies. And in order to make financial institutions providing more investment for the startup companies, I think it isn't necessary to improve the capital market system so that the venture capital can easily invest in and they can recover the fund from startup businesses and they can reinvest with the investment return. And in this point, the marketplace for the trading, for exiting the investment, and for this reason, in July 2013, the KOSDAQ opened the Connect market. As I said, the stock market for the SMEs and the venture businesses in early stage. And the government helped the market by easing some regulations and providing some tax reduction on the venture capital, which invested in the startup market in Connex. As I said, in January 2016, the Korea government has introduced equity crowdfunding. It means they allow startup corporation with new ideas and the new business plan to finance themselves from the general public. In order to provide a marketplace to recovering their investment of crowdfunding investors, the KRX has established the KSM and an off-exchange trading platform. One more difficulty is many startup companies confront is actually a lack of supporting platform for the startup companies. In fact, there was many needs to build a supporting platform for startups in terms of connecting startups with investors and getting education or consulting for business management. To this purpose, the Korea government operates a Center for Creative Economy and Innovation in 18 major areas in Korea. And in order to provide various services, including training, and consulting on the capital market, the KRX has also set up the KRX Setup Center. The last thing I want to point out is the creating of a policy fund in government. Actually, it is necessary to provide active venture capital through the leading role of policy fund. In order to stimulate the investment of a startup company, the government is establishing policy fund like a fund of fund or the gross ladder fund in Korea, and they use the government budget or the fund of a public financial institution for that.
Okay, so in Korea, the Korea Exchange provide a marketplace and encourage the participants such as VC to participate into this market. And for the government side, they have some kind of a tax reductions, innovation district, and funding, right? So, Kun Kesara, how can SET support the startup SME in Thailand?
Actually, for us, we has been doing a lot of projects regarding the startup for almost 2 years already. Like last year, we start with we allocate our investment into the fund to invest in the startup, and we cooperate with the government agency like Krung Thai Bank and Government Saving Bank and Ministry of Finance to set up the fund. Total fund, I think these three parties is about 4.8 billion baht. Or about 140 million US dollar. This one is about 6 funds, and most of them would be invest in the startup, but the startup would divide into like tech startup and other startup companies. And it has been progress that we are seeing a lot of progress that we can invest in these new startup companies. And another things that we has been done is the education. We did it into 2 areas. The first area would be the startup people that we have had a discussion and experience sharings among the startup people. We has been done for like several times already. But another area that we did would be the university professor, because I believe that the university would be another source of a supporting role to the startup people in Thailand. We have been working with the university for all over the countries and sharing about the startup and what's going on in the startup. So to let them know that after graduation from the universities, their student might just go for the startup or even do it before they graduate. And we are going to continue to doing these things in this year too. And the last one that we has been done would be a kind of the web portal. Last year we introduced a web portal and we include all the startup into the web portal to see that the information of those startup, we got about 600 plus company of the startup that in the list of the portal. And we are planning to migrate those 600 companies into the new platform that we call the live platform. And this one would be a kind of the starting point of the platform that we would have several hundred of startups to join us. But more importantly is we are looking for that we are going to do the marketing for them. But this marketing would be based on the startup information and how could they attract the investors. So what we are going to see that the live platform will start by the end of this year. Thank you.
Okay, so SCT will provide fundings, education, and the infrastructures for startup in Thailand. So, คุณเกษราครับ in your opinions, what are the key success factors that capital market or the government should do to promote and strengthen startup business?
What I see that we are going to the right direction. That you see that we have the startup event. This is second years. What the government, I think the government would be the major part too, because of all rule and regulation that we have is not suitable for startup. That's why we need to change. And right now the government realize and acknowledge that they are going to change. So we are going to see that, and all the people in the startup area has been in the working committee to kind of modernize the rule and regulation. Secondly is this is lucky enough that we are in a digitalization period because of all the technical things, all the news technology has been helping us. So it's just a matter of how could we use it to make our life easier. That is another point that we are going to work together. And the third things, which is we already done, but I think this one is like all the funding source. Even the Stock Exchange of Thailand is part of the funding source, and the government has a lot of funding source. But the more important thing is how could we make these startups to have their own market? How could we make them to stand by their own? Because I believe that if the startup can grow because of their business model, the funding is coming. That's the most important point.
Okay, so there are three factors. The rules, regulations, I think this one is the most popular issues for maybe every country, right? And second one would be maybe we have to digitize the process that we send information among each participant, among everyone in the industries. And the last one will be the fundings. So Konuma-san, is this the same case for Japan?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with Kesara-san's comment. Well, even in Japan, it's a lot of the approach for funding. Central government or the local government, municipals or prefecture, city level, a lot of the subsidizing. Also, the government-supported banks make a loan a lot to the companies. But I think, again, this, the key factor of the success will be how they manage that business and how may control the company itself. So the government should pay certain attention to monitor that business and how that money would be used by the companies. Then also not only the funding, but also try to support more the expertise or human resource management That's also the key issues. For example, the venture company from the university, a lot of the venture companies from the university, and always the idea comes from the professors. A lot of subsidized and a good idea, but the professor really like study. They don't like the business itself. So just spend the money for the study and then not lead to the business itself. That sometimes happens. So how to make the technology to the business field? That's a very key issue, I think.
So it seems that we need to also focus on the human, especially for the human resource and human educations that we need to educate them. Mr. Chair, how about in Korea? Are there anything else?
Yeah, I agree on all this the opinion. And in case of Korea, looking back on the growth of Connex market last 3 years, the 4 factors can be found in the success of capital market for startup business. I want to point out as the first one, active policy support by the government. And as I said, many startup companies have difficulties in financing, and in this point of view, we need more active action of government to attract the venture capitals into the startup companies. And in order to do this, I think various incentives such as tax deduction or deregulation on venture capital investments will be needed, I think. And it is also necessary to create exclusive fund which invest in the capital market for the startup business only. Second one I want to point out is a significant reduction of cost related to the listing, and for including more for inducing more active investment in startups, the cost occurred from security issuing and the listing maintenance, such as accounting, disclosure, or corporate governance, should be lowered significantly. But it should be limited to the level of not damaging the investor protection. The third one is providing of sufficient investment information. And sufficient invest information will be one of the key factors in the increased participation of investors and maintain the credibility or the integrity of the capital market. And so in order to make up for a regular corporate information and analysis report from investment bankers for the startup company, the exchange, the CAREX, needed to encourage startups to carry out IR activities more frequently and induce investment bankers to produce more research papers on startups. The last one is incubating. Many startup companies appears that they have big troubles in finding how to finance and how to prepare for listing. And in order to help startup companies grow to more matured one, it is very important to provide the startup companies with incubating services as the training and the counseling, and besides financing support. One more thing, the exchange can review fast-track services, which allows companies in startup companies to transfer to the regular main market more quickly. And this will help corporation to raise a more large scale of money. They can finance more easily, I believe.
Okay, so we need more VCs and lower cost of listings and have some investors protections, disclose more informations, and we can have a fast track for the business that want to be the listed companies. Okay. Since Korea and Japan already opened the startup market in your countries, but Thailand is still working and plan to open in these years, you have more experience than us, people in Thailand. So could you please share any pitfalls or lessons learned in promoting startup business in your countries? Anybody want to? Okay.
So pitfalls, a lot of pitfalls. Well, when we talk about the young companies, newly listed company or companies preparing for the IPOs, it's a good company with a good idea, the business model. But sometimes the ownership or founder of the company is a kind of charisma, it's a very strong leadership. In other words, sometimes the founder have the most powers to control the companies. And really, it depends on the human nature of that person, but sometimes the company was losing the compliance, morals. Sometimes there is no check and balance mechanism inside. So of course, we try to find out those pitfalls before that listing, but sometimes happen, even though after listing. So we should be very careful, but try to educate the business industry. Even though the strong ownership founders, there is a need of the check and balance. It could be the accountant, could be securities houses, or could be the independent director of the company. So anyway, the good human, good supporters, that is a key. So and against the pitfalls.
So we need a more check and balance for this kind of business. How about your case, Mr. Chair?
As I said, startup companies face a lot of challenges, such as lack of investment demand or corporate analyst information. So one more thing is, as I said earlier, they often appear excessive listing-related burden of regulation. In the current capital market regulation focus on medium and large-sized company, so it is inappropriate to apply the existing regulation to startup company. So we need to make or design a capital market system dedicated to startup companies only. It means we need to make a customized regulation for startups. Second one I want to point out as a pitfall or lesson in our country is that we should distinct between good startup and bad startups. It's a very important thing. For the effective distribution of government support, it is very important to distinct between what company is good and what company is bad. Actually, it is very difficult things, but it is because there is many concerns that various government supports incubating system like as a financial support can be used abused as a moral hazard. So the government should have an eye to pick out startup company, what startup company is good and what startup company is bad for the investors or for the economy. So the only good startup company can have benefit of the government policy support. And And for this reason, we need to develop the program that allows the participation of private investment company in finding and supporting the startups.
So that means we need some kind of the measurement to distinguish between the good startup and the start not up, right, companies in the market. So in that case, in your opinion, what would be the recommendations for the government to do something to attract and grow startup business?
I think it's kind of redundant, but it's we
You are not in Korea, no problem. So suggest here.
We can summarize the three things. The first one is, as I said, the active support of government. So actually, the startup industry is kind of creating something out of nothing. So they need many help of government, and it is in real world it's a very complicated thing. So I recommended establishing a control tower for the startups is considered as an alternative. Such a control tower can provide support and help to startups for the very beginning phase to the growth phase. And the control tower help them to register with the startup market as a Connect or the KSM, and the being transferred to the higher level market, the KOSDAQ or KOSP. Second, I recommend is customized support for each stage of growth. Actually, there are many kind of cooperation in the real world. Some cooperation need a small size of funding, and some cooperation needs medium size of venture capital influence, and some cooperation wish to get a large scale of the cash influence through IPO in the capital market. And so it would be very helpful for the startups to provide differentiated support policies according to their growth stage. And such as when it is initial stage or when it's a stable growth stage, the support the level should be differentiated, I think, and also customized support to upgrade to the higher level would be good help for them. The last one is the launching new capital market platform. The CAREX sometimes faces difficult when we try to provide customized support for the startup company by using the existing the capital market platform. It is very difficult. Sometimes we found it's very difficult, and this is due to differences between the overall market system and the corporate real life. In such case, a new platform for example, opening a new market or the introducing crowdfunding system in Korea would be effective in the startup company. The last one, the CAREX has a various market system that connect the stage of startup and the support for them. We call it as a growth ladder system. It means from crowdfunding to KSM to Connect and to KOSDAQ. It's like a ladder. We differentiate the support, and they can help more easily and more effectively in in each steps.
Konuma-san,
One of the important things for government is promote the kind of communication among the industry-wide people. So how many organizations get together for this event? The Thailand is well done, I think. Well, the communication is very important. I found one of my friends, the day 4, from the Tokyo University. Several years ago, we voluntarily exchange and then university voluntarily talk about how to treat the intellectual property of the university for the venture company of university, how to treat the intellectual property and how to treat the dual role of the professor, both the university plus company itself. And then we did a lot of the study and then clarified the guideline of the listing examination. Since that, a lot of the people can start more precisely prepare for the listing. So those, communication would be a key role, and then government would be supported. Yeah.
Kun Kesara, any recommendation for the government? It will be off record, no problems.
Actually, I believe that in Thailand, the government and the private sector are working together. We cannot be just depend on each party to work alone. That's why we are seeing that the government sector has been work hand in hand with the private sector for the startup business in here. And I hope that this is an example of a cooperation together, because of when we work that we think about the startup and we even the Stock Exchange of Thailand, we really wish that to have a strong startup in Thailand, because of, if we have the strong startup, it means that the Thailand would be stronger. Thank you very much.
So I think we come to the end of the discussions. We have time a bit. So are there any questions that you want to ask for the panelists? Okay. So if there's no questions, I think we would like to thank you everyone for participating in this event. Please join me in giving a big applause for our speaker today, Mr. Chair Namki, Mr. Yasuyuki Konuma, and Kun Kesara Manchusree.
All right, big round of applause. Very interesting things from the stock market, especially from Japan and South Korea. Next up,